Okay, so a few weeks ago, Sam asked if there's anyone that I knew that I felt like might be an interesting fit for this group and this community. And I immediately thought of this guy that I'd met on Twitter, Olo, who I'd been reading his writing, and I was like, this guy's into philosophy, he's into shamanism, he writes about technology. I was like, it would be really cool to meet this guy in person. So selfishly, I was like, we should definitely have Olo here. And in the last few days, it's been such a like joy and gift to meet someone in real life who's even more interesting than you like hype them up to be from reading his stuff online. And I think I feel a sense of kinship with him. And what I really appreciate is I feel like he has gone to some pretty dark places in his life, and he is willing to share his recovery process from going through addiction, and things that he's learned from that, and he's sharing those gifts with the world and just stepping into things with this sense of courageous curiosity, which I really appreciate. So I'm really curious to hear this talk and to find out more about the man. So please come to the stage, Olo.
I think I'll be a little bit faster than that, actually.
Hey, Geet, where's the clicker?
Ooh, cool. I'm fire dancing. Hey, everyone. Yes, please. You like? Thank you. Thank you. Well, first, I'm just so happy to be here. I had a similar moment this morning that Sam did where I was just like, wow, like, what is going to make me not want to do this all the friggin' time? And yeah, so let's get into it. Human Revolution is my company. We'll get to that, but first I want to tell you a little bit of a story, a little bit about me. Alexander Olshonsky, strong name, Russian. It used to be Olshonsky. It's also there's a little bit of Italian in there with the Forst, and German. On my parents' side, my mom's side, escaped Nazi Germany, and so I have a lot of complex evil empire histories in my lineage. The man you see on the left there is DJ Olo. Olo actually stems from a mispronunciation of my name. My lacrosse coach in high school called me Olshonsky. Then it stuck. I became a DJ Olo, and then I was claiming that later on in my career. So really, the heart of my story begins with a deep, deep journey. And so what I went through, just taking me a little minute to step into it, it's always emotional to talk about it, because whenever I give talks like this, I'm reminded of when I used to travel around the world and give talks just like this. I was working at Twitter, as you could see then. I was kind of your classic ad man, going around, and I was likened myself to be a good public speaker. I was a good public speaker. I commanded the room, was presenting to executives, doing multi-million-dollar Super Bowl ads, and really fun, exciting stuff at an exciting time when we still thought that social media was good. Maybe it is still good, right? We don't know. The point being, though, that it's very easy to be a good public speaker when you're snorting a bunch of cocaine, lacing it with Xanax, doing Oxycontin, then smoking weed right before your meeting. As soon as you're done, hitting the bar. Like when you're in that state, the conversations, things just flow. You can just talk effortlessly. And that was my life for many years. I went around traveling, speaking, and this predicament where I kept on needing substances to live my life, to live everything that society told me that was right. You know, I had the sexy job. I had a hot girlfriend. I had all the things that conditionality said was good, but my inner world was an utter mess. And it wasn't actually until I hit my bottom. Every addict has a bottom. These are times that are they're horrible, they're sacred, they're precious, And there's something beautiful about them because it's a moment in which we must stop kidding with ourselves and just finally ask for help. And my bottom happened when I had just gotten a job at a company you guys maybe have heard of, Slack, in a new role that they had specifically designed for me. So it's a brand new, very exciting role. This was years ago. I went to that interview. I don't share this with everyone, but I went to that right before that interview. I snorted 300 milligrams of Oxy. I laced it with Adderall, and I fucking crushed it. You know, surprise, surprise. It shows you the type of state that I was in. That only lasted for about 3 months. Things had just been spiraling down. And right when I lost that job in that same week, my now ex-wife, walked out on me. Kind of like a 1-2 gut punch. I promise we'll get to some less heavy stuff, but this is what it took for me to change my life. And that was my bottom. And from there, I dove headfirst into recovery. I made it my life. I went to an AA meeting every single day. I had always been a yogi. I'd always been a meditator. But this is when I became an expert, and I started really learning and dedicating myself to the healing path. And so this kind of kicked off this rocket ship of transformation. When I was thinking about, okay, how did I actually end up here in Experience House, and what is it that I value and what's important to me, it took this kind of transformation for me to really even figure out what it was. I used to be a hardcore existentialist. And so through this journey, I've honed in on 3 things that define my life. And I am all about leveraging the intersection of nature, technology, and human connection. So on the nature side, maybe went too fast. First, there's the body, because our bodies are part of nature. We often think that we're separate from nature, but our bodies are very much one and the same. And so what that came for me is yoga, teaching yoga, advanced calisthenics, biohacking, but not the druggy bad kind of biohacking, the kind that can help enhance your life. Somatics, actually just this morning I submitted my deposit for the Hakomi's Institute, which is a somatic psychotherapy program's graduate training this year, which I'm very excited about. And then another big part of my life has been plant medicine. I have been a student of ayahuasca lineages from both Peru and Colombia. You can see here in the picture in the bottom right, which didn't come out so well, was the isolation hut I spent studying and dieting in with the Shipibo tribe. That up there is also another picture of the tribe down in the far western jungles of Peru. And all these things have come to inform my life philosophy. Now, on the technology side, I've still been in technology this whole time. It's been over a decade. And so there's been some companies that you've probably heard of, some maybe that you haven't. And I've been advising companies for the last, basically for the last 5 years, doing startup founder advisory. It wasn't until about 2 years ago when I realized that people were coming to me for help on the addiction and recovery side of things, more like traditional life coaching. And I founded Human Revolution, which is my business. I call it transformation coaching. I try to shy away from life coaching because I think it's become a bit of a dirty word these days. And my program marries ancestral wisdom with modern science. I work with executives, founders, rising leaders at unicorns, and help people provide a container to do the deep work that transformation requires. And then the other part, which is probably the most relevant to what we're doing here, is human connection. And so on the human front, my writing, I think I've identified as a writer first and foremost throughout all my life. And it wasn't until I finally cleaned up my life where my writing started to flourish. And so I write about consciousness, mental health, addiction. I share my journey. And at the start of COVID, I sensed that people really needed a space to discuss the existential changes that were happening in the world. And I founded what started as a little community for my readers to talk about just, okay, do we need to go to Nevada and liquidate all of our assets? What's happening when it felt like the world was coming to an end? And since then, it's really flourished into a true digital community. We do weekly and biweekly Zoom calls where we dialogue as a mean. Dialogue as different from discussion or debate, because I think the goal with dialogue is to truly understand each other. And so this whole community was really born with trying to reimagine how we can foster connection, human connection, to further propel our species forward in COVID times. And so super excited about this. There's, I think, a lot of promise there. And one of the reasons I came here is trying to like absorb all of this wealth and great people here on how to help grow it. I host men's retreats, intimate gatherings. We have tons of exercises, many of which are similar to what we're doing here. Also, we do journeys. And one of the things that I'm most excited about that I'm working on is Natura care programs. So we're designing a long-term addiction in ayahuasca program. We're working with a nonprofit that is part of a community that I work with that's affiliated with the Michael Pollan Center of Psychedelic Studies in Berkeley. And this is going to be the first program of its kind. Oftentimes, you can go to a retreat for ayahuasca for a week, even 2 weeks, and then that's usually it. You can go to rehab, spend thousands and thousands of dollars, but you might not know, or you may know, that rehab's just the success rate is awful. And so we're pretty confident that this has the potential to really revolutionize treatment in the addiction space. And so when I told my community what I was doing here and sent them this, they're like, "Oh, you gotta have them come have our next retreat at our center, Posada Natura," that's a picture of it. Our community has a retreat center in Costa Rica, and that, in a nutshell, is me. Thank you guys so much.
Awesome. All right, we're at 10 minutes, but maybe just like 2 minutes of questions. Does anyone have anything they want to chime in on?
It does get toasty up here. Yeah, Pablo.
Yeah. Was there any, as you transition and transform, was there any resistance from peers, specifically when
On the career side, or on more of like the just like cleaning up the life side? Yeah, there wasn't as much, actually. There was a lot of support. I think that the resistance came more from like my family, where my family comes from like a very rigid, very Jewish like background, where you're supposed to, you have a good job, and like why would you compromise that? And so the friends were actually, oh yeah, like this, duh, but the family was a little bit harder. Oh yeah, I knew. That's a really good question. I think I could give a few answers. The one probably that's most alive is that there's a lot of talk around like whether addiction is a disease, and I think that that's a concept that's extremely useful in early recovery when you learn that, oh, actually, I haven't failed morally for all this bad behavior I've done and for all the ways I've lied, cheated, and drugged. I have this disease that takes over. And it helps people to really, it helps society also understand that this is actually a sick person that we need to offer our compassion to. That said, I think the disease model is a little outdated. And especially with what we know now about psychedelic assisted therapy, what we're seeing in other realms of somatic healing, and just other emerging research, it's less of a disease and more of like a mind virus that can be healed. And so the idea that addiction is a chronic disease, meaning that it will be something that you have your entire life, if not, and you'll die if it's not treated. I think we have an opportunity to maybe change that perception. Johnny.
what is something that you learned from spending time with
Yeah, that's a really good question. So many things. I think more than anything, they have taught me trust. to trust the process, to trust the plants. The one thing that like would always come up, like, and I think that one of the things that I've also really absorbed from them is that, you know, this type of work can be so deep and can be so profound. Like you can have your entire identity and paradigm shattered. And you might come to them with a question thinking like, okay, guru, like brilliant healer, like I think I've got it. Like, here's what I think happened. And, you know, they'll just say something like, more to be revealed. You know, and so it's like also just knowing that like we're in this ever unfolding process and just trusting that, and you know the things will be revealed in their time. Yeah, Balu. No, that's a really good point. Not everyone is a candidate, and so like for instance, the program that we're doing with long-term addiction and ayahuasca, we have a strict screening criteria. They need to exhibit at least 3 months of sobriety, and I'm seeing the time, so I'll wrap up.
Yeah, I think we should call it.
Yeah, thanks. That was longer than I talked.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah, thank you, man.